Welcome to Career Conversations. My name is Bill Kelly, an assistant director with the Career Center here at Brookdale Community College. And Career Conversations is a student-led podcast, and this is our debut episode. And my role in the Career Center is to help students along the difficult journey from college to career. So with that, I'll pass it off to the rest of the group here.
I'm Lauren Quinn. I'm the coordinator for Alumni Affairs. My role here is to work with students who are going to be graduating to get them to connect with us and to stay connected with those alums so that we can see what your post-Brookdale journey is.
So I'm Anna Carvalho, one of those almost graduates that will hopefully be talking to Lauren soon. I also work at the Career Center. I work as a career peer mentor, so I'm basically just here to have those kind of conversations where if students are a little bit iffy about their career journey, just looking to talk and relieve those anxieties, but also mainly to work on their resumes with them, because that's, as we all know, the key first step into your career path. Pass it over to my colleague.
Sure. Hello everyone, my name is Hannah. I am a mechanical engineer major here at Brookdale. I will be graduating this summer, and I work as a digital content creator for the Career Center, where I create digital content for the Career Center, like managing the social media platforms.
Oh, hi, I'm Shruti Shukla. I'm a computer science major, and it's my last semester. I'll be graduating this semester, so I'm super excited. I'm on the e-board for a lot of Brookdale clubs like Dreamers, NSLS, and some other that I forgot about. But I'm a part of the computer science club, ISA. I was part of GCP, GCD for a short time, and yeah.
And hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Scott. I am a Brookdale Community College graduate, and I then went on to complete my bachelor's in finance at Rutgers in New Brunswick. And I'm now currently working full-time at Johnson & Johnson in corporate finance. And I'm very happy to be here, so thank you, Bill, Lauren, and everyone else for having me today.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, one of the elements within our department goals in the Career Center is to really raise awareness of the concept called career readiness, right? Now, I have this definition here, so it's great that we have an alumni who's out in the real world here, and a student perspective and everyone's perspective on really breaking down this concept of career readiness. Because I'm going to read you a definition through this organization called NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they are really developing a lot of great resources, but when we read their definition of what career readiness is, it's really hard to translate that to everyone and have a key takeaway in terms of how you apply that in a practical sense. So, according to them, so right here, career readiness is a foundation from which to demonstrate requisite core competencies that broadly prepare the college educated for success in the workplace and lifelong career management. And they have been helpful in giving out some framework for career readiness competencies. So we have career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. So it's a lot to think about, but I think what's helpful just to initiate the conversations for this project, our career conversations, is just to have your own takeaway of, well, what is career readiness to you? How do you define it? Because we all come from different avenues of life and different perspectives. So it might be helpful for the audience, the students that are listening to us, to hear our take, and maybe they can identify a little bit more to each of our definitions of what career readiness is. So, and anyone want to take a shot at it?
Sure. So I always talk about career readiness as something that student employment can help with a lot. If you don't come into it already having all of these or some of these, you can probably basically find them within student employment. I post on the Canvas page that we have where they have these listed, and you can, talk about experiences you've had with students. And this job, my position as peer mentor, I learned a lot about leadership, taking kind of control of my group who I work with, DCC, and just working with them to see what we can do to better outreach students. So leadership is super important, something I go through every day. It's really important as an education major. I obviously am going to be leading a whole class of, 15 to 18-year-olds for English, and sort of also helping them, guiding them to leave high school and enter that college or workplace field. And communication is a really big one. I feel like a lot of people think communication means sometimes like you're able to stand in front of a bunch of people and speak your truth, but I think communication is also important in explaining what you want as well from an internship or a job. Maybe you wanted to do more leadership roles, so being able to communicate, hey, if there's any opportunities, I would like to take a chance because I think I could be good at it. So that's one of the really important ones. And of course, teamwork. Like I said, me, Hannah, and Antonio, we work every single shift together. It's kind of impossible not to work together because our jobs they work kind of like, how they say, like tentacles of an octopus together. It's just one head. So I think that's really important too, that we use. What do you think, Hannah?
I think you said all the good points.
I heard the importance of collaboration, right?
Yeah,
Even on
yeah.
this project, right? You are collaborating. You had a pre-meeting before. You're really just talking things out.
Yeah.
And another thing that came to mind was really getting out of your comfort zone and the importance of doing that as a college student, whether it's student employment or taking on an internship or just even attending an event that's happening on campus.
Yeah, and I think you make a lot of great points there, and I agree with all of them. I think what now I can look back and see retrospectively, because I've finished the school part of my life, well, for now, finished. In case I change my mind, who knows. But what's funny is that in the moment when you're in school, you're doing these things and you're recognizing, you seem to be very self-aware of what you're doing, which is great. And you're recognizing them as part of your educational experience in your path, right? But what's funny is that a lot of what you're doing now is going to be very similar to what you're doing when you're in the workplace. Same ideas, same concepts, same skills. What's going to change is your subject matter, because you'll be working with, in your case, it'll actually be somewhat similar because you'll be still in an educational institution, but you'll be the leader of the room. You'll be the teacher in the classroom. So the subject matter will be a bit different, but the skills that you're utilizing are going to be similar to a lot of what you've learned and hopefully developed some mastery in during your time in school. So the gap from where you are as a student to where you will be as a professional is not as wide as it seems when you're in the student role, but once you get into the career role and you look back, you realize it wasn't that big of a leap, which is quite comforting. I wish you could see that now as students. I don't think I could make you see it that way, and I don't think anyone could make me see it that way when I was a student either. But hopefully that can provide at least some reassurance for you guys as you continue to move towards the end of your educational journey.
Definitely.
Yeah. Maybe let's stay on leadership for a little bit longer. So can you share a little bit more about your experiences as a Brookdale student and how you really worked on developing leadership? And because you have incredible successes, and
Thank you.
I think students need to hear about what you've done as a Brookdale student.
Yeah, sure. I think probably one of the more important things that works for me as a leader, both in my role as a parent, my son is 6, so it's obviously plenty of leadership there, and it's not something I can kind of dial in and out of, it's perpetuating. But also when I was a student I find it pretty easy for me to admit to when I'm wrong and to when I need to make a shift to my plans that I had maybe rigidly in place, but no, let's try and do a course correction there. I think the first great example of that is when I started Brookdale, I actually was planning to pursue physical therapy, which I don't think most people know that. But once my son was going to be born, I realized that I needed to kind of change course. I wanted to pursue something that was a bit more pragmatic and had less of a long tenure in school, because I wanted to get to the point of being able to provide sooner than what would have been probably around 8 years had I continued with physical therapy. And actually one of my professors here, shout out to Cheryl Fensick, wherever she may be today, she was a great guiding light to me and was my anatomy professor, and I expressed to her like, hey, these are my concerns, this is what I think might change, and I think I was choosing one path, but it's no longer the right path for me. I don't know what to do. And she was very honest and forthcoming with me to say, like, listen, you need to go with whatever you think is the most beneficial and pragmatic for you in the long term, even if that means leaving behind what you initially thought was like the plan at the onset of things, which of course I did, because now I work in finance, so not at all physical therapy. I'm now attending physical therapy, which is a totally different story. But the ability that I had, and I'm fortunate that I did, to look at what was my path in front of me and say, no, it's what I said I wanted, but I can no longer pursue that for whatever reasons I need to course correct, was very helpful in the long term. And I look back and I'm thankful that I had, 1, the foresight, but 2, more importantly, the support of others to provide me the reassurance to go forward down that path, to change courses. And then as far as my time at Brookdale, I mean, I've always been the type of person to want to be involved in a lot. And I think that funnily, it's really just my social butterfly nature. Being involved means meeting new people and making friends and getting to hang out with all different sorts of people. And that to me is the best part of really almost anything, is the social aspect. But in doing so, it allowed me to inherently land in positions where I have the opportunity to say, hey, like, this leadership position is open. For example, in Phi Theta Kappa, I was the vice president of finance and fundraising. It was a position that opened up, it sounded interesting to me, and it was the ability for me to get into a position where I'd be networking and making friends with people again that were like-minded, wanted to pursue something that was a bit more than just a slightly involved role in the organization, but a leadership position. And just continuously trying to find whatever that next opportunity is to get continuously more involved, which typically meant taking on leadership positions, was always just an interest of mine. And I don't think at any point I would look back and say, that didn't really play out as I had wanted to. I think each of those instances has proven to be as beneficial as I would have expected it to be, if not more so.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really great information. And, working with students, oftentimes they put a lot of pressure on themselves. Like, I have to declare my major because this is it. I can't pivot, like you mentioned. But that is an option, right? And I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit about your story in terms of pivoting from one major to another.
Mm-hmm. So I started off Brookdale 2021. My junior and senior year was COVID completely. I had maybe 2 months that I had started into junior year before everything went down. And that was, supposed to be 2 weeks, ended up being the rest of my high school experience. And they always say that those last 2 years are supposed to be where everything happens and it's great. And unfortunately that was not my case. I didn't get to really have those conversations with guidance counselors either about what I was thinking. And I had also started sophomore year at vocational school for nursing. As an immigrant myself and from immigrant parents, I just went for the health field because that's one of those things where from immigrant families, those are usually typically the jobs that, or like lawyers, that they are going to be most proud of, or that we went all this way to get here so you could have a really successful life and that's what you chose. Like, that's amazing. But I just did it for that point, and also because I always knew deep down in my heart I wanted to help people somehow. And I didn't get to really finish vocational because of COVID, so I didn't get to play out what vocational was really meant for in high school, which is that, do I really like this sort of a thing? And when I started here at Brookdale, I had hybrid classes, so it was like half online, half here, but like 5 of us in a class, maybe mass, and sitting really, really far away from the professor, hoping that I could hear during the lecture because it was kind of hard. And it was just a time of anxiety because you come from the pandemic thinking, this is never going to end. I was 2 years in at that point, and that's not how I wanted the college experience to go at first, because technically, when you walk in, it's supposed to be that, take a tour, meet with people, but at that time, you couldn't really do these things the normal way that you're expecting anyways. So when I started nursing 1 class in, and it just hit my chest that wasn't for me. Not that I didn't love taking care of people, because I adored my experience at vocational working in a nursing home. That was the part that was the best for me. None of the other aspects, however, of nursing did anything for me. It was just the people part. And I had to come to a conclusion that this was not the major for me. And the second that I learned that, at the same time, I was anxiety ridden, but also relieved. It was that, am I even doing this? Like, is this the right thing to do? Like you were saying, like, is this worth it? Like, am I doing the right thing? Because of course, like, we all have 100 other jobs like we would love to do, not thinking putting family or money or anything into it. But I had no idea if this was the right choice. And I also went from doing something that socially is this like amazing thing, to be a doctor eventually, to teaching, which in some people's eyes is just going straight down. And for immigrant families, like, they think because at least in my country, I'm from Brazil, teachers get paid little to nothing, and it's terrible, but that's what they grew up knowing, that if you were a teacher, maybe you weren't be able to feed your family. And they don't know that in here, in America, there are much, obviously, greater opportunities for teachers. So the first step was being able to accept it myself, because I think the first step really is denial, when you're like, this is not the major for me. But then it felt right. And then after that, it was being able to talk to people, which is what I always recommend for any students that come to see me. They want to have that career talk with me, like, what do I do? It's talking to people, because even talking to me counts. Talking to your friend counts, your brother, your sister. I went for my brother because he went to Birkdale before. He had a really successful time here. He worked here. And what he told me is, what makes, like, it feel like you're happy to go to work? Like, what gives you that feeling? And when I thought about waking up, no matter how early, to get to class, to see a bunch of teenagers see me and pick me to look at every day and come see me and be able to teach them, that was like that felt perfect.
Right.
So immediately that was like, I'm in the right place. And it was hard. You know, everyone always thinks, like, changing majors is so controversial. Like, if you say that out loud, people are going to be like, wow, like, you changed your major. But another thing that we were talking about before is this whole judgment thing. I think we make ourselves. You know how they say, like, sometimes looking in the mirror, you see a bunch of things that nobody else is looking at when they see you. They just see you for you. But when you switch majors, you're like, everyone's gonna look at me and be like, wow, she has no idea what she's doing. Like, she's switching, it's like uncertain. And then when you really think about it, no one is looking at you like that.
Right. Yeah,
You know?
it's just built up into your head.
It's just
right?
you know, you're having the anxiety. But the only thing that's going to take the anxiety away is just accepting that you're fine. And that's what it did it for me. So I made the change. I went with my advisor. We talked. And the second I left that office, it was like, it all came off my shoulders. I was like, this is it. I'm going to go through the rest of my time at Birkdale, finally happy, like, in the classes I'm in. And when I took the opportunity to do observation hours with the help of Anne Laporta at her office, I did them at a high school nearby. And even 50 hours of being a student observer, not even student teaching, I was like, this is so wonderful. I was like, I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning and it doesn't faze me
Right.
because this is perfect.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that whole, like, it's like I don't know, like, your heart's about to leap out of your chest. But once you can finally just, like, calm down and think about it and think of how much happier you would be if you just went for something that fits, that makes sense with your personality, everything just kind of falls into place.
Yeah, no, it could just be really anxiety provoking, but to make that decision. But just to your point, having these conversations, whether it's from a peer perspective, who's in your class, to a faculty member, to the folks in the Career Center, or really, employers that are out there, ideally listening to them, because I think it's hard to find a similar trend in terms of someone's career progression from college to career, but it's a roller coaster ride, right? And that's one thing that we need to really demystify, is that it's not a linear equation to become career ready. There's going to be ups and downs and pivots. It happens whether you're navigating from college, or I'm sure, as you're a professional in corporate America, there are these similar transitions that need to happen.
The funny thing about that, I think, too, is that many people probably won't even know you changed your major. It's pretty much up to your discretion of who's going to know that, unless some people are just very observant of, like, well, you're no longer taking X courses for nursing, but I'm sure those people are probably friends of yours, hopefully. But, so it's to your discretion who's going to know that and who's going to be aware of those changes. But also the thing I think it's important to remember is that if there are people that have, opinions that they feel so inclined to share unprompted, they shouldn't be things that should allow you to change your mindset or change your directions. Akin to if you're, driving a car and you have a bunch of people in the back seat. You're not going to move the steering wheel every which direction the people in the back seat are saying that you should because of their opinion, right? Because that would create a very unsafe path towards whatever your destination is. And it wouldn't help anybody, least of all you, the driver, the one dealing with said driving and the anxiety of it. So no, you're going to continue to steer your own course the way you believe is best. And the same should be true of your career and your educational journey, in that there may be people that you would trust their guidance. Your person riding shotgun that has, they got the aux and they're running the best, mixtape for the road trip, and they got the directions. But those who aren't in that position of privilege to help guide you because you have them within that circle of trust, sure, they might have their thoughts and their opinions, but it shouldn't be the thing that affects the way you're going to steer the direction you're choosing to go.
And I think that's a valuable skill to learn early on, because I think it's hard to remember that. So I think it's a valuable skill to learn now.
Yeah, it's like having that mindset, like, don't take criticism from people you wouldn't take advice from, because, like, they don't know what they're talking. It's like their opinion, but if you wouldn't take advice from them, then, like, don't even mind their criticism.
Right, that's true. And then actually talking about, coming from maybe a first generation, or you didn't have someone that you could look up to or ask these or have these conversations about being ready for college. And when deciding on a major is really important, sometimes we're hearing outside factors. So did anyone consider what their family thought what they should major in when it came time?
Yeah.
I know Anna, you had mentioned.
Yeah, I think basically the three of
Totally.
us have
Yeah.
some experience. Hannah and I had older siblings that went first, is what we like to say. We were saying earlier, they kind of did the free trial of the whole college thing. Went their path, and we would basically take notes, and they would also give us advice, both her sister and my brother, to try to help us, because they are not going to know everything since they're first gen, and they're definitely not going to know, the perfect, here's a piece of paper, it's exactly what I did, follow this. My brother was similar to me in the beginning, because he did social work, clinical social work, and he's currently working for a mobile response, and I was in nursing, so it was kind of the same, but he said the exact same thing that I did in the beginning, which was, I just want to help people, I just don't know where first, and he had nobody to work with at all, because our parents, obviously they didn't go to college here, and we came here when I was 4, I think, and my brother was 12, and when he first started in that, about to be in high school, they started to talk about career stuff with him, but I think back then too, it was a little bit more, it was different for sure. I feel like now pretty much everyone will get spoken to and make a plan, but maybe back then it was only if you reached out or if you wanted to know. And especially if you did come from like an ESL program or something like that, I don't really see that back then they were coming to your class to try to talk to you about career, because maybe their main focus was teaching them English or something like that. But he had a lot of anxieties, and his whole thing was, in his head, he's always told me, he had to make it perfect so that he could answer questions for me. But I always told him, no one told, like, you didn't have to be perfect. Like, no one has to be perfect in their career journey, because there's a million other ways you could go. Even with his college decision, when he was, which is something I'm currently going through, when he was trying to figure out where to go first, Birkdale being one of the options, he literally had no idea, because there was no one to ask. There was no one who had been to Birkdale before and could speak on, what the school was. He went to college tours by himself, because my parents were hard at work when they got here. And that was tough for him, going at merely 18 years old, taking a bus or a train or whatever to go visit these campuses. But he told me that the most important was reaching out for resources here while still here, because I really do agree, and this isn't even biased, that Birkdale has one of those, it's just like more homely than anything that you've ever really seen. The professors just, I feel like they care for you in such like a special way. I've had so many professors, many that, maybe have nothing to do with my major, like my math teacher, Professor Darden. She's the best. She really gave that like sense of security. Those days when I would walk in, I'm like, I don't think I can pass this class, I don't think I can do this. She'd be like, who told you that you couldn't? So even talking to someone like a professor, or if you're in student employment, talking to a supervisor and having those conversations is what he did, because unfortunately there wasn't, an older brother for him. He is my older brother. So it's just the thing about resources, and he was constantly at upstairs and advising, making those conversations. He was constantly working one-on-one whenever he could, always making sure you're reaching out to literally everybody that you possibly can while you're still here. And, with the resume, like me doing the resume for people, we're working side by side with them. Even though it seems like it's one of those things, like, oh, I'm just going to worry about it when I'm about to graduate so I can get my job then. Having it done before is one of those things, too, that I know my brother wished he had done while he was here, because he didn't utilize the Career Center as much as he wanted to, and he expresses that to me now. Because out there, to find someone to help you with your resume is like impossible.
Right.
Or you can try to go on Google and just pick whatever template and hope that it does it for you, but the connection that we could have, me sitting down like I do with the students here, and us working through and them telling me, I want this job, I'm really looking forward to this, and me working with them is something I think everyone should take while we're here.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe I'll segue into a little career center plug. So located in MAC 105, and we really want to visit with you from your first semester all the way through, so you can have these important, benchmarks to your career development. Which, and if we refer back, that's one of the first competencies to become career ready, is that career and self development.
Yeah.
So want to visit us as soon as you can.
Yeah.
That's
just-
it with my plug. Thank you.
Great
And
plug,
just
great plug.
adding on to the thing about older siblings, I luckily also have an older sister. She went to Brookdale, and she went here during peak COVID, so like she was all online. And she always tells me, like, Shruti, like, I didn't have a good experience at Brookdale, but I love Brookdale because you're having such a good experience at Brookdale. Because, like, just all, like, I always, like, go home and I tell her, or, like, even at the Spring Fest, I went home with a bag of, like, full of free things, and she would, like, I was showing them to her. And all the other clubs that I'm in, like, every time there's, like, a fun meeting or an event, like, I go home and I tell her about it. Because, for the Women's History Month, a club I'm in, Will and West, they were doing so many things. And West recently had a dinner, I think. I forgot what it's called.
It was a West alumni, Women STEM alumni dinner.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it, but I was telling her all about it, like all the 4 people that they invited. And she's just like, I'm so happy that you had such an amazing experience at Brookdale. And she's always like trying to tell me, like, just do everything you can do. And she's always cheering me on. And I feel so bad because I absolutely love Brookdale and I met so many amazing people here. And then I feel that, then again, like the guilt we were talking about, that comes in. And I'm like I feel guilty because she wasn't able to experience all this. And so I'm also trying to make the best I can of this experience for her also. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
no,
that
that
makes
does.
perfect sense.
So it's just like I'm trying to involve her also in a way, because I was trying to invite her to the Spring Fest. I don't even know if it's allowed to invite your family members. I was like, you should come. Like, I'll introduce you to my friends, and I'll introduce you to like Erin and Lauren, and they're so nice from the Student Life Board. And I'll introduce you to the transfer department and the career department. Everyone's so nice. And it's really sad, like, she wasn't able to experience all this. But she's like, right now, like I said, because our majors are completely different, she's able to help me like file my FAFSA and all that, because also like she's studying to be a CPA. But then everything else, like I'm also trying to go out as much as I can and get involved so I can also help my little brother in a way, so I'll be able to guide him better. Because my sister did such an amazing job, but like I wanted, like we were talking about before, like for our next generation to have that perfect what's the word,
like the
blueprint.
perfect experience.
Yeah, so I kind of want to do that for my brother. Like I want him to have the perfect thing, even if he doesn't end up going to Brookdale. I want him to be able to like know that you have so many resources. And there's like because I did not even think like we could have so many resources at Brookdale. Like even in my last semester, like I'm still finding new things. Like I didn't even know this was a thing, this podcast, until today.
Yes.
And like I'm finding new things every day that just make me love Brookdale even more.
Yes. I think,
But-
sorry.
Sorry.
I think, like all I hear about Brookdale is like, I go to Brookdale Community College. It's like, oh my gosh, my son went there. He loved it there. It's just like, every time I hear about Brookdale, everyone just talks about like good things about it.
And I have noticed every single person I've talked to here, they're like, oh my god, like when I first found out that I was going to Brookdale, like I cried, I didn't want to go here. And not gonna lie, I didn't cry, but I didn't want to come here either. Just because my sister didn't have a good experience. I was like, if she didn't have a good experience, I'm not gonna have a good experience. But I'm so happy that wasn't the case. Like I loved it here.
Definitely get involved.
Yeah.
Just join a club.
Totally,
Join a
like,
club,
and
go to
it's
events.
yeah, it's so nice, especially like because I love, like you were saying, like I love meeting new people. I love finding out about new people and just their life story. It, like, helps us learn, about their experience and then how we can relate to our experience. So at Brookdale, like I've met people who are completely different from me, like grew up in a completely different part of the world, but also people who are so similar to me, and that sense of community is just so like precious.
Yeah, that's great, and it's nice to see that you're kind of building like a schematic that could be used.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think your sister, unfortunately, I think her experience was,
I know.
The underscore there is certainly COVID, right? Because how much can you really make the experience your own when you don't have the opportunity to? Not too much, right? But to your point, like you were a little apprehensive about coming here at first. But you've come and, of course, made it what seems to be a great experience for you during your time because, life happens wherever you are, whether you make it or not. And it's going to be what you put into it, which clearly, and I'm sure you all have done a great job of doing just that, planting seeds that are going to become rows of flowers for your own benefit at the end of your time at Brookdale. and that's really just great to hear. And I was more similar to your brother, and in that I had no schematics in front of me from my family or from anyone else. So for me, it was very much so the pioneering journey of I have just as many questions as anyone else, maybe more, because I'm like, what is college to start? You know, like, I had no idea what any of it was, and so just having to try to figure out what my questions are. How do I ask them appropriately?
Right.
Then who am I asking them to? Okay, now how do I take action on the answers I'm receiving? Like there were so many iterations of like, it's not just ask a question, get an answer, you're good to go. There was so many steps along the way. And I mean, truthfully, I think the most helpful thing for me was certainly like people like Bill and Lauren and then the Career Center. And like we were mentioning earlier, like great professors. I mean, it's something to be said about being in a classroom where you have, I don't really know if the class size has changed since I was here, but it was like 30 kids, I think was the largest class size I ever had. And then I went to Rutgers, New Brunswick, and 30 kids was the smallest class size that I ever had. And there's no exaggeration there. I had classes that were in the hundreds of students where you can make your name known, but it becomes a point of diminishing returns where it's like, okay, if you make your name known in a class size that large, you're at some point probably just being a little bit gratuitous and perhaps a little annoying just to make your voice heard for the sake of doing it. Right? So it becomes a lot more challenging to get that one-on-one connection with your professors to the point where you can have an actual relationship established with them, which is what then can lead to them being supportive of you and being an advocate for you and helping you along your journey. And it was, I think you'd almost have to try to not get that experience at Brookdale. You'd have to be the person that is hiding in the back corner of the classroom with your hood up and your glasses on, your AirPods in every class session, you know?
Yeah.
So that certainly was such a huge benefit for me starting my education here was, one, the great education as a whole, but two, the ability to ease into what was the new journey of education for me and be able to figure out, like, how do I do this before I then went and had to continue doing so at a very different institution.
I think that another kind of a good point that relates to that is kind of that fear of if you're in the same sort of atmosphere as the people around you. Even with community, like she said, you could meet someone exactly like you and what you're going through, but also completely different than you. Like 100% the other way. And I actually did find this article recently. It's Her Campus, which is basically an all-female college blog. And I found some really interesting stuff about graduation that's just coming up, you know, which we know about. And it's really exciting, and it can be that kind of time where, like, there's all these events coming out, and you see it posted everywhere, like graduation dinner or event for the grads. And there are definitely, I feel like, some people, which I know of myself, who have that anxiety of, I probably should have been graduating now, but I'm not. Or I was actually supposed to graduate last year, but I'm still here. Or there's that thing about Brookdale where they're like, oh, but you didn't do 2 years? And I'm like, well, you know, like, you never know. Because I've known people who have literally been here for 6 years doing their own journey. And it's not that thing where I feel like education and career is not linear. There's not a, you will begin at this point and you will finish right here, and that's it. You know, it's not something we can estimate. You know, you could always search up when you might graduate and see what you could do, but setbacks happen. You might need to step back for personal reasons, maybe family reasons, maybe just for your mental health too. Take a break and then go back to school later. It's not one of those things that I feel like is shameful, and like we were saying before, I feel like we give the judgment to ourselves, you know, like we're giving each other anxiety when no one else is looking at us like, oh, you're still at Brookdale. There is none of that, you know, and that's what also I love about here. And even, you know, seeing older students in my class, I've had, I think it was last semester, she had just turned 65, and she came back to my English class that I was in, and she said, well, I was a nurse, and now I want to be a teacher. And I was like, that's literally, I was like, that's what and she was like, I wish I had known before. And I was like, and she was like, oh, I hope you guys aren't, you know, hope it's not weird that I'm here. I'm a little bit nervous. I know, like, it's weird for me to be talking, you know, to a bunch of 20-year-olds. I don't have anything to relate to. And I said, no one in this room is looking at you and thinking she doesn't fit in. It's more so, I'm so happy that you chose to come back and rewrite your career journey however you wanted to. Because it's easy to just point fingers and say, well, you could have, but you never know someone's story, what led them to take a break in between or why they couldn't. So that's why that whole judgment thing is, you know, silly to begin with. But then seeing that she came back is inspiring. And, you know, I know that graduation, with it coming up, people are probably, who are maybe even listening to this, like, I probably should have been graduating this year, but I honestly need another semester. Another semester is not the end of the world. Another
Right.
3 semesters is not the end of the world. You have to take 5 years here. I'm not going to look at you and point and ask you, when did you start? I just want to know when you're finishing and that it's good for you. Like, congratulations. So I think it's really good for us to break out of that mindset of, I needed to begin this year, I needed to finish this year. Or, like they were saying before, like, getting sometimes into Brookdale, some people think, like, I really wanted to get into a 4-year. There should be sort of, like, dropping that barrier where you're like, do I tell people that I went to Brookdale? Like, I'm a little scared. All of my friends, that was for me,
Oh my god, yes.
was everyone in my graduating class left state. Almost every single person left the state. So there were as far as California in my graduating class, and I chose to go to Brookdale with no problem because my brother came here. And it was at first like, I don't think I want to, everyone was posting like, oh, this is the jersey, like, I'm going here. And I at first was like, that's kind of, me, look at me, I'm at Brookdale. But now that I look at it, I'm like, look at me at Brookdale. Like,
I'm at Brookdale.
Yeah.
I did that,
Right.
Number one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
State.
And it's that thing too. She says that you can have this mentality that makes you feel like there's something wrong with you if you're graduating later. The mentality that convinces you that you won't have the same opportunities if you graduate later, which of course we know is false. Opportunities are around the corner everywhere we look. And, maybe taking an additional semester can mean you get to do an internship that you wouldn't have been able to do if you graduated right now. Or a job position that was not open when you graduated is going to be open by the time you finish. So I think it's really important for us to take all of this into consideration. You're not missing out. You're not losing your chance. I definitely felt that way at first because when I switched my major, obviously that made me, go a little bit behind. I should have graduated last year, but now that I look at it, I'm like, I'm glad that I didn't graduate last year because I would have had to come back to school and redid this all over again. So I'm glad that I just, went with my gut. And then, it's just that thing where I feel like we're all responsible for how each other, around us, like, or the group feels or community feels. If we just break that stigma now about when you're ending or what are you doing or switching majors like we were saying, I think that'll make just everywhere as a whole, no matter what school you end up going to, much more easier of a process. We're trying to, like she said, generation by generation, trying to make everything a little bit better. My brother wanted to absolutely give me a blueprint, like she was saying, and say, this is it. When you don't have the same major, sometimes the blueprint doesn't really fit perfectly. But I think we all want to do that for everyone, but we definitely need to go through our own paths. Community being number one, trying to find the people who understand us.
Right.
And from there, going through our own sort of way. And if that means having to restart 5 times or having to come back to school 10 years later, that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do,
Yeah, and just adding on to the thing where you said, like, how it takes, like, oh, I was supposed to graduate last year. My sister, I'm sorry, I keep bringing this to my sister, but the first thing is, like, I feel like older siblings, immigrant older siblings, they take it on themselves to, like, parent us almost, and they're like, oh my god, it's my responsibility, because just a few days ago, like, I was listening to my sister, like, talk to my brother, and I was like, girl, like, it's not your responsibility. Like, you're not supposed to be the bad guy here. Like, that's our parents' job. You're not supposed to be doing this. But has like this assumed responsibility because she's the oldest, and also, like, she was supposed to graduate last year, but just being at Brookdale, she had no guidance. Well, so she's also, like, an introvert, as, like, I feel like a lot of older siblings are. So she didn't go out to the career department or the advising department. So she was a bit behind on her schedule, and she's graduating this year instead. And, like, I just want to tell her, like, it's okay. Like, don't be ashamed. And, like, it's not a problem. Like, it's fine. And we have, like, they're not even our relatives, just, like, family, friends. They're like, oh, like, weren't you graduating last year? Like, when are you I'm like, they're not paying your bills. Like, you don't owe them an answer. Like, it doesn't matter. Just do it at your own pace. And also, like, you'll be fine. And I just, like, I want to tell her, like, how much I look up to her. But, like, as a younger child, like, I feel like it's my responsibility to not tell them that. I can't tell you that I look up to you. Sorry. It's embarrassing. Like, I'm sorry, I don't do that.
That gets
But-
easier with time to be able to.
Yeah.
It's like a great
Yeah.
sibling thing for
So
sure.
it's also, like, a lot of times, like, we were talking, like, if I was the sister and my brother was telling me, like, do this and do that, I'll be like, no, shut up.
Yeah.
Let me. So it's the same with my sister, like, cause she was like, oh my God, Shruti, like you have to take like 6 classes every semester. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. I did end up taking 6 classes. But, they were easy classes. It's fine. Like I did, like now I'm graduating with like 70 credits, but like I'm not gonna tell her that I'm listening to her advices and I'm gonna act like I'm pissed, but I will listen to her advices because I know that she's been through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, and you were saying like the trial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
they
your free
were
trial.
Yeah.
exactly.
It's all about tapping into your tribe and where you can cherry pick the information that's going to help
Yeah.
you on your individual journey, right? We all know
Right.
everyone's journey is different. Do you feel like that relates to maybe the corporate world or world of work after you leave college? Is what
Yeah,
you're
I
saying?
want to touch on a couple of things. I mean, we just heard so much great stuff, so I'm trying to remember everything that's in my brain. But
Mental
first and
blanks.
foremost, the siblings thing. It's so funny how I'm one of 9, so I have siblings above and below. So I experience all the gamut of sibling relationships, and it's funny how with siblings being when you're the younger sibling, it's always stop telling me what to do. I don't have to listen to you. But could you repeat it again so I can write it down for later? Because you know it's actually pretty helpful advice that you're probably going to want to look at again at another point in time. So that's always funny how that, and that, in my experience, has not really changed much over time, where it's like, my older brother will tell me something, and I'm like, shut up, you don't know anything. But wait, what was that, though? That actually sounds pretty good. I'll take a second listen to that one.
Yeah.
But, Anna, so what you were saying earlier about, as far as, like, timing, I mean, it felt like you're reading off notes of, like, my journey. I was wondering if you guys did, like, some sort of FBI background
really?
check. I started at Brookdale, I was 24, so when I started, I already felt like I should have been finished, which is such an interesting, read between the lines, terrible feeling to start
Right.
with, because it's,
Yeah.
why do I want to feel that way? No, of course I don't. But it was so hard to shake because I'm in the classroom with people that are in, most of the time a normal age to be pursuing their education, the start of it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I obviously have many friends that are my age. So I'm seeing all of them that did go through a more traditional path, and they're already in their careers and have been for X number of years, 1 to 3 years, and doing well. And I'm like, okay, that's where they are. I am just starting school. I don't even know what I'm going to do to like get through the education. There's just so much in front of me that I'm like, shoot, I feel like this should have already been done and resolved, and
Right.
I don't want to have to be doing this now. But of course, I can't change that. I can't go back in time and alter the course of my life, and I wouldn't now. But it was an extreme challenge to try to come to terms with the fact that my pacing and my timing is not what everyone or anyone else's is. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. And in retrospect, I look back now and I'm quite thankful for when I went to school, because at 18, when I was right out of high school, I certainly did not have the foresight or the wherewithal to make a conclusive decision about what to do for eternity, right, with my career. And so I'm quite thankful that I didn't go back until I was significantly older and had the maturity to say, okay, this is what I know I want, which, as I mentioned earlier, was physical therapy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, but I was wrong.
Right.
That's what I wanted, but now this is what I know that I want. And also this is what I know that I need, more importantly, and being able to pursue that well. And I think over time it was interesting how my age differential between me and most of my classmates, at first I saw it as like a great weakness of mine, and I saw it as like a huge burden. And over time I began to see it as a much more of a strength and a way to differentiate myself from others, but also to the point of like what we were saying earlier about meeting people and making friends. I found it to be a really great point of intrigue to talk with people, because I was kind of the outlier of no one else was, 6 years ahead of normal time and had a kid and doing education. Most of them were more normal age. So they wanted to talk to me about why I was doing that. A very fair question. And one that I, over time, got to have a pretty good answer for. And I, of course, wanted to understand their perspective, because I didn't experience an educational journey from their point of view. And so it created a really nice nexus point of social connection between me and a lot of my classmates, which was just so beneficial in the long run. I've made so many friends through school, both at Brookdale and at Rutgers, that I'm still friends with to this day. And the age differential has never been anything but,
Right.
at this point, just a talking point. It's just, oh yeah, that's Jonathan. He's a little older. No big deal.
Yeah.
That's probably it's not even that.
Right.
Hey, that's Jonathan. And then I talk about my kid, and they're like, well, how is he? How old is he again? Like, his kid's 7? What? But, it never actually was as much of a challenge as I presumed it to be at the start of my educational journey. And the other thing you said, which was really funny, was, well, not funny, but funny how much it related to me specifically, was the timing of if you need to do an extra semester, an extra year here and there. And what you had mentioned arbitrarily, or perhaps not, was taking an extra semester so you could pursue an internship. That is actually exactly what I did when I was at Rutgers. I was intended to graduate in May of 2021, and I realized the start of that year, so fall of 2020, that I wouldn't have been able to get the internship I wanted with Johnson & Johnson if I graduated in May, because then I would have been graduated before the summer internship, so I would be technically ineligible to intern. So I was like, okay, well, that's going to make it a lot harder for me to get the full-time role that I want, because I won't have the internship experience, I won't have the foot in the door. So what do I do? So I changed the pacing of my coursework through the course of that year, so I would have 3 classes to take the following fall. That way I could have that summer as intern eligible, intern, and then graduate that fall. And that's exactly what I did, and obviously that proved to be quite fruitful for me, because that's what ended up getting me into my career path that I'm currently in now. So timing is funny. It's not always a race to the finish line. I think more often than not, it's probably more of a marathon, and you want to take your time and pace yourself, and there may be ebbs and flows to when you're sprinting, to when you're jogging, to when you're going uphill, to when you're going downhill, to when you need a water break. All different considerations as to when you're doing your pacing and your timing throughout your educational path. And I think that probably persists throughout career as well. I don't think I'm far enough into my career to know that. For me, it's been kind of fully a sprint since I started. But I imagine the same will be true for career journeys as well.
Absolutely, and I'm so happy you mentioned internships. Internships, right? Or any work-based learning is so important, and honestly, that's what employers are looking at. Less and less are they looking at the GPA. It's a factor for sure, but they want to see that experience, that stepping stone opportunity for you is very, very valuable. So, and you can seek assistance with finding an internship by visiting the Career Center and also logging into Handshake, which is Brookdale's job and internship database.
Career Center Mac 105.
Yes.
Thank you. Absolutely. All right, so I think this was a really fantastic initial point for our Career Conversations podcast. But I'll leave it to the students here. Do you have any other questions or topics that you'd want to ask Jonathan from his perspective working?
Open book, you can ask whatever you'd like.
I had a question about transferring to Rutgers.
Go for it.
I might be transferring to Rutgers next semester, and like being at Brookdale, that has set like certain expectations for me of how I want my peers to be, how I want my professors to be, how I want my classes to be. So like the only thing that I'm scared of about transferring to Rutgers is the class size, because I love having like that personal connection with my professors. I can just go to their office hours. I can personally like sit down and they'll re-explain the topic to me and be like, okay, no, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And I know Rutgers has like great like resources, and they'll have like study groups and such. But me personally, I think I'll be able to flourish more in like a smaller class. So like that's one of my biggest fears of going to a class, especially in a field like computer science, where there's so many kids in computer science, and having like 400 people in my class. How did you
navigate it?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think if that is the path that you end up going towards with Rutgers, I think you have to kind of face the inevitable, and that you will have class sizes that are going to be larger than what you've experienced at Brookdale. And so I think if you can, and I didn't do this because like I said, I didn't have a schematic, so I was not prepared for that 500 person lecture room. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But if you can kind of still yourself ahead of time to be prepared for the paradigm shift, you know, you're going to be going from fishing in a barrel to fishing in a pond. You still have the same propensity to catch a fish, and they'll probably be similar size and similar benefit to you. But the work that you have to put in to do it will be different, and will be at times just substantially more, because you're going to have to find a way to make, if it's a matter of getting a relationship with your professor, it's not you and 29 others trying to communicate with your professor, it's you and 60 others. So you just have to work maybe a bit differently or a bit harder in the same direction you always had at Brookdale to just get that connection established. And similarly, like the things that you've done here probably prove to be a good track record for success at Rutgers, but you just might need to tweak a little bit here and there and see how you need to change it for the difference of environment of smaller classes versus larger classes.
Right.
And you know, I have a lot of great connections with my professors from Rutgers as well. I have one of my old professors, he and I are beer buddies now. We go to try out different breweries around. He's actually younger than me, which is such a funny paradigm, you know, him being younger than me and teaching me. Which is really great. And I have other professors that I'm still in touch with quite regularly, and I come and speak at their classes, similar to like, you know, coming here and speaking with you all. So it is not an impossibility by any means, and it's not even an improbability. It's just a matter of it doesn't as easily happen naturally just by attending the class, and requires a little bit more proactivity. But just from 30 minutes of chatting with you all, I have zero doubt in my mind that each of you has the propensity to get to that point, however you might want to, at whatever educational institution you pursue next.
Right. For me, I don't know. Personally, it's just like I fear the known more than the fear of what I don't know. Because coming to Brookdale, like, I genuinely had no idea what to expect. And that was okay for me. But, like, going to Rutgers, like, I know what to expect. I know how it's going to be. And I know how... Because with Brookdale, it's like everywhere I go, I know people. Which I think if I give time, maybe... that will be the same for Rutgers, but it just might take more, like you said, different techniques and different, I don't know, more time, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just like I know what to expect, and that's more scary for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, and I mean, it's totally understandable that's scary.
Yeah.
I think that it'll be challenging for sure. I mean, transferring is harder, right? Because
Yeah.
you're going into a school where a lot of the kids have been there for 2 years already, and so they know each other.
Exactly.
They have their friends already. So
Yeah.
you're like wiggling your way in. And there's other transfer students, of course. And for me, that was a great inherent click in to like, okay, who else is a transfer student? Cool, you're also alone and don't know anyone? Well, we can at the very least, pair up and buddy up until we figure out our own like lanes that we want to traverse down, whether they are together or separate. And I had a handful of those relationships as well, where it's like, cool, let's just struggle together for the first semester and then figure it
we'll
out from
find our
there.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's also good practice because think about what's your next transition after you finish your four-year degree. You're going to go from school to the workplace. Oh,
Right.
I'm guessing that's
Right.
the plan, right? It's going to be a more jarring shift there to go from school to work because similar to Brookdale to Rutgers, totally new environment. But now it's totally new environment, totally different subject matter, totally different pace.
Right.
Like there are so many similarities between Brookdale and Rutgers because they're both educational institutions. But when you go into the workforce, there's going to be so few similarities to what you're experiencing in school versus what you'll be experiencing in the workplace. So giving yourself the opportunity to kind of like dip your toes in the water of this kind of transitionary challenge now will probably prove to be fruitful when you go to make the larger transition from school to the workplace.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, like I never thought of it that way. Like now that's another fear.
Great, so helpful. I'll see myself out.
That's in the future.
Yeah, for me it's like I try not to worry about things until I have to because like even the math class that I'm gonna have to take, it's like I don't want to think about it until I have to. Like if I'm gonna be worried then like why am I gonna be worried now? So about the work I'm just gonna worry about it 3 years after. Like I'm good with that because I was thinking of doing like the 2+1 masters, but I don't know. It's scary.
Yes.
And like I know in my heart that I'll be okay, like it'll be fine because like I know my personality, like I know I'll be okay, but I'm scared anyways.
Fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
But you're learning to navigate the waters here,
Yeah.
and it's just the same lessons you just apply to new situations.
Yeah.
And there'll be other people feeling the same way you do. So you just got to
Exactly.
remind yourself
Right.
that
Yeah.
like everyone else around you feels the same way.
Yeah.
In my experience, the people that publicly portray the most that they have no fear of what's coming next are the ones that are the most scared because
Right.
they're overcompensating by projecting like, yeah, I'm not afraid of anything. I got all this figured out. It's
Yeah.
like, really? Do you now? Great.
Yeah, like in my case, I have a friend, Amara, she just transferred to Rutgers, and luckily, like, they have, like, a whole transfer class now, I guess, so, like, she's met a lot of good people there, but it's, like, she knows what she wants, and she's going for it. When I got into computer science, the only reason I chose computer science is because my dad is an HR manager, and he was like, this is the thing that's most famous. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, let's try this. So it's like, I do not know what I'm doing. I don't even know if I'm going to stick with this. I don't know what type of job I'm doing, but she knows what she's doing. So that kind of also like what we were talking about before, it's like comparing myself, but then also like, I know we're coming from different backgrounds, we're coming from like we have different paces and all that, but then it's also like she's so confident, she knows exactly what she's doing, she knows what job she's gonna have, and she has it all figured out. And even you only applied to one university,
And I got
and
it.
I applied to like 8, and I was like I'm still confused. I said I'm committing to Rutgers, but like I don't know, like I still don't want to, but like I know that's kind of my choice, but I don't know. It's just
Well, yes. Well, first we want to normalize. I don't know is okay for right
Yeah.
now, right? So
I know that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I know it's okay, but it's just like, I don't know.
Mhm. No, it's definitely a difficult, journey to navigate. But what we've learned here today, right, is well, one, don't compare ourselves to others, right?
Right.
We're beaten to our own drum here, but also accessing all the support resources that are out there, right? And we have a fantastic alumni office. We have a strong alumni group that is looking to connect with students, whether you're a current Brookdale student or beyond, or actually you'd be, I guess, Rutgers.
Yeah, same but different now.
Yeah.
At Rutgers.
So, you're not alone in that sense, right?
Yeah.
So, as long as we chunk things out and you get, have these career conversations, you'll find your way.
Yeah, I was going to say really quick just that Brookdale will be here for you even when you leave.
Yes.
And that's something we're working on in our area too, because with COVID, I've only been in this position for 2 years, but it's important to keep that sense of community once you leave here. So that's something that we're definitely working on. So just know we're always here for whatever. We will, the alumni office is happy to talk to. I am. Me personally, I love talking to students and alums. So
Yeah.
we will be here if you need anything at all.
I know for a fact that I'll be here in like the next 5 years.
And that's okay. We will.
Yeah.
We are happy. I love talking to students even who have left. I've kept in somebody at Rutgers actually. I'm like, how are you doing? So I think it's important to know that sense of community you have here will always be here.
I know.
10,
it's like
20, 30
yes.
years.
Brookdale is like the one college that I always want to stay connected to because like so many of my professors are like, I went to Brookdale and now I'm back here. And I was talking to Nicole from the transfer department. She's so amazing. And she was just like, there's so many ways to be still connected after you leave. And I'm like, you'll see me. Like, I'll be here. I'll be emailing you. Exactly.
Please email me because as we build our alumni program the way we want to, we need students like all of you who want to stay with us and help us build what you need post Brookdale.
Right.
And
yeah, it's like I know for a fact like after 5 years I'll be like, Shruti, like what were you worried about? Like everything is fine. Like there was nothing to be worried
Hindsight
about.
is 2020.
It's hard to feel that way now though.
2020 is a great year.
Well, I think this was a great initial, episode of the Career Conversation podcast. I think we covered a wide range of different topic areas. So hence, career readiness is important. Career conversations, whoever you have them with, is very important. But if you haven't found your tribe or your community or your support network, well, start with the Career Center, start with the Alumni Office, start with your peers and alumni here. All great resources. So to that.
Yeah,
Thank
and if I
you.
could leave you guys with one final nugget, it would be that when you're looking at career readiness, it's not you have everything you need and you've mastered it all and you're ready to just apply your mastery to work. It is that you feel you have enough of the prerequisite knowledge to go forward with the next step of your learning. And learning happens everywhere. It's not just in school, it's in the workplace, it's in your personal life. Readiness means you're ready for what comes next. Not that you have done everything that's coming has come prior. And I found that to be incredibly true of my life as a parent, and I found that to be incredibly true in my career as well. And I'm still learning every day, and I never feel like I know everything and that I'm ready for the next thing because I have nothing left to learn in my current place. It's always, I want to take something else on. I'm ready to do the next thing to increase my learning, to widen my breadth of knowledge and experience.
Thank you so much.